This is, of course, maybe you know or maybe you do not, but this is Sitting Bull and Custer. Kind of this historic moment of the conflict between worldviews, this historic moment which exists today. So, this is what it looks like. Our ancestors talked about this time that they talked about, our prophets, they talked about in terms of, our prophets talked about in terms of fires. And they talked about how people would come. And some of those people would have a good heart and some of them were not. That's true. They talked about our people disappearing, and we didn't have a word for smallpox. But 95% of our population is gone from the first biological warfare. That's the reality of this country, right? And then they talked about our things would disappear. We didn't have a word for when you take all your stuff and put it in a museum, right? We had no word for anthropologist. But that's in fact what happened to a lot of our stuff, and our people themselves were put there. Then they talked about, our people would go to sleep. This is like these prophecies they were talking about, which was the boarding school era. They talked about the time of the seventh fire. That's where we are now. I'm just going to skip ahead a couple of fires because I want to give you some time for questions. And then the time of the seventh fire, they said that we would have a choice between two paths. Two paths. One path they said would be well-worn, but it would be scorched. The other path would not be well-worn, and it would be green. And it would be our choice upon which path to embark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bum you out and tell you about the scorched path for a few minutes, okay? And we're all going to just kind of like settle into the reality of where we got ourselves, collectively. And then I'm going to talk about how we're going to move out of it, okay? So you just got to hang with me. But this is buffalo skulls. That's what that is, if you've never seen that picture. That's buffalo skulls at Fort Dodge. That's what it looks like when you destroy 50 million buffalo. It wasn't like kind of like a Charles Darwin thing. It was a military policy of the United States to kill those buffalo. And people know that, and people know that that's egregious. It's an egregious act that occurred. This is when they signed a bunch of dam projects that flooded all the reservations in the northern plains. That's what this looks like. This is kind of the general picture of what the scorched path looks like, in terms of both ownership and in agriculture, what it looks like, and in something called the tar sands. That's the picture to the south. That's what extreme oil looks like, and extreme behavior. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk a little bit about what addiction looks like. So, I'm hanging out with you, and I've lived my whole life in the fossil fuels era. That's pretty much what I know. And I just want to say that. Spent my whole life in it. I've had a really great time. You guys had fun so far? I mean, come on, admit it. We're the people, I went to drive-in movies as a kid. I fly around. Sometimes I buy food from all over the world, and I feel special, right? I get my flowers from Colombia the next day. You're all with me, right? We do it. My personal favorite right now is that I feel like I should always buy Fiji water. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Stuff tastes great, but I'm like, why should I have Fiji water from 8,000 miles away? Sometimes I just want to have water for 8,000 miles away, but that's the absurdity of this. What I'm saying is that in my lifetime, I've consumed half the world's known fossil fuels. Sorry, y'all. Not so many out there, And so this is this peak oil production, where we get to. And basically what I'm saying is it's like we've been partying, and the party's kind of over, right? My personal feeling is it's like I am going to move out of the fossil fuel era because it's going to happen. We didn't move out of the Stone Age because we ran out of rocks, right? We move on because it's going to happen. The question is who controls how it happens? I'd like to move on in kind of an elegant transition. Y'all understand what I'm saying? To the next economy. I don't want to crash my way out without a plan, right? I'm all for that. That's his plan. So this is where we are. This is what you do when you're at the end of the barrel. This is an era known as extreme extraction. We're at the bottom of the barrel in just about everything, just to be really honest with you. So this is what fracking looks like from the air. Y'all heard about fracking, right? So when you kind of run out of oil and there's not oil gushing from oil wells in Oklahoma anymore, right? You end up in this era where your system is jacked up on fossil fuels. That's us, right? Let's totally be honest about where we're at. We're all jacked up on fossil fuels, and we don't have a plan how to get stuff, right? And so when you start running out, you start doing crazier and crazy stuff, basically, to fulfill that market or fulfill that demand, right? Kind of like addict behavior. I just want to point that out. Right? So what you do is, you do things like drill 20,000 feet under the ocean, right? Because you can, because you're so smart. And then you get the Deepwater Horizon. Y'all remember that one? The endlessly gushing oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, right? Or maybe you do like really cool stuff like you blow off the top of 500 mountaintops in Appalachia. So you can have coal that you're going to ship to India because you don't even burn it in this country anymore. That's like, you understand what I'm saying? Extreme behavior, right? Fracking. Blow up the bedrock of Mother Earth, put 602 chemicals down there that you do not have to report because of the Energy Policy Act of 2005 written by Dick Cheney. And you live under the assumption that what goes down will not come up. Good for you. Nice idea. Right? You understand what I'm saying? And then you have the tar sands. Tar sands looks pretty brutal. I mean, I saw that picture before. You don't get a free ride, it turns out. But the behavior gets more and more excessive. And my personal feeling is, like, I want to do like a fossil fuel counseling group. You know what I'm saying? This is like we're addicts. We got to come up with a plan, baby. You know, because it's not working out. This is when it not works out. You know, this is what happens. So this is fires in Fort McMurray. That's in the middle of the tar sands. It's kind of like, I think it's called Binson. I don't know, it reminds me of like the town next to Auschwitz, perfectly. You know, it's like this town where it's all good there until the fire hits. This was like a couple of years ago, this massive fire that occurred in Fort McMurray. You know, but my point is that we've entered this era of what my partner refers to an era of catastrophes of biblical proportion. We're there. Did it, you know? So what does that mean, catastrophes of biblical proportion? Massive storm systems you don't predict that hit the south, right? Lay to waste countries, tear up our infrastructure. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You know, nobody knows. Nobody knows what's going to happen in a storm anymore, right? You used to kind of like have an idea, and now it's like pray like hell. Let's just be honest, right? You know, biblical proportion, the entire West Coast was on fire last year. From California to British Columbia was on fire, right? That's catastrophes of biblical proportions, right? You know, in the Arctic, you know, I don't even know how to start about the tragedy of the Arctic. We could just talk about the fact that polar bears now cannibalize each other because there's no food. Like, how messed up is that? You know what I'm saying? They didn't do that. We did that to them. We did that to them. And to the east, you know, half of you may be Trump supporters, but I think he's a political, and I think he's a catastrophe of biblical proportions. You know, what is going on in the world, and the amount of screaming that that man does in creating hate is not helpful to civil society. I'm just going to full on say that because I'm the person up here with the mic. So what's it look like besides that? You know, this is what it looks like. This was Minnesota, like the polar vortex, the 1.5 feet of snow I had last week, right? We don't know what's going to happen. And then what's it cost us? I'm an economist by training, and I'm like, whoa, do we have a plan for climate change? No, we don't, right? We have no idea. So power outages are just going to keep increasing. A power outage, or, you know, PG&E is who caused the Paradise Fire. You know what I'm talking about in California? That was caused by faulty wires. Old infrastructure, we got a D in infrastructure in this country, a D in energy infrastructure. You think that's going to last through a bunch of these storms? No way. Y'all understand what I'm saying? Munich Re, the world's largest reinsuring company, says that we're going to be spending 20% of world GDP on climate change disasters by 2020. That's next year. I don't know that that's true, but the point is like, who's paying for this, right? No city, no municipality. I heard you guys are going to be 70 feet underwater. That'd be fun. You know, who is making this plan, right? This is what it looks like on the costs. You know, it's increasing. So my thinking is, you know, having parented a lot of children, better to averse disaster than deal with it after, right? No time like the present. You know, the UN says we got 12 years to turn this baby around. Can you turn it is the question. I think you can. I think you can. I'm just going to give you this one image before I forget it. Like, one day I was sitting in Sitka, Alaska. Any of you been in Sitka, Alaska? Isn't that like the most beautiful place in the world and you never want to leave there? I was like, I'm going to just stay here forever. So pretty. It's like this coastal town, and you're sitting there and I'm just looking at the ocean, and the eagles are diving for the salmon that have come in, and there's like, it's like the most picturesque moment. And all of a sudden I see this cruise ship come in on the left side of my vision, and it keeps coming in, and I'm like, well, that's really messing up my perfect worldview, you know. So I like watch this cruise ship, and that cruise ship comes in about here. I don't know if you ever saw this there, but that cruise ship turns a 180 and goes back up. I was like, that they just turned a cruise ship on a dime. I'm like, that's what we gotta do. You understand what I'm saying? Is if you can get a cruise ship to turn a 180 in a sound, I was like, we gotta do that. You know, at some levels. That's what I'm saying is if you want to move, you got to figure that out. So in our prophecy, we said we had this scorched path, and in our prophecy, we were told that there's two paths ahead. One path they said was well worn, that'd be to tar sands, right? That'd be where we're going right now. And the other path they said was green, and it would be our choice upon which path to embark. That's what our prophets told us a long time ago. I'm pretty sure that's not just for Anishinaabe people. I'm pretty sure that's a situation we are all in here in North America. What's our plan? Who's going to make that plan? You know, you can expect some people in Washington to make that plan. Who's making that plan? You know what I'm saying? There's a saying in my community, which is you're either at the table or you're on the menu. Either at the table or on the menu. Where you all want to be. I'll be at the table, right? That's these questions about where we're going. You know, this toxic stuff, it doesn't just affect the land. This is North Dakota, the fracking fields. That's non-Indian people took that out. So much sex trafficking and the valuation of women is so low there. And then there's this. I just want to point this out. You know, in my neck of the woods, North Dakota is kind of super, we call it the deep north. The deep north, North Dakota, for a lot of reasons. But this here, these women, there's this town in North Dakota called Leith. They did a film on it called Welcome to Leith. It came out a few years ago at these film festivals, which is about kind of the depopulation of North Dakota. Everybody leaves there because it's super cold and all, right? Y'all with me on that? Like super cold and all, right? And so then they all leave it, and there's these towns that are like almost abandoned. Well, there's this guy who's like a neo-Nazi who bought the whole town of Leith. And he like built this like little Nazi town in the middle of North Dakota, right? I was like, wow, go for it. Well, these women, I used to work with them when I was like 18, and they were really scary then, and they are even scarier now. If you look up on Grandfather Google, Lakota grandmothers burn Nazi flag, that's your picture. They burned it. So what they did is they captured the Nazi flag, and then they burned it. Phyllis Young, Madonna Thunderhawk, and Mabel Ann Chasing Hawk, and then I don't know what the sister's name is. But what I'm saying is it's like crazy stuff happens, and sometimes someone stands up. You gotta summon up your courage. You gotta summon up your courage. My friend Ralph Nader used to say sometimes a private citizen must become a public citizen. Sometimes you gotta summon up everything that's in you to say that's not happening. That's not happening. So this is my battle. I spent about half my time fighting stupid pipeline projects. I spent my whole life fighting stupid projects. My whole life. Plus I do really cool stuff. We'll get to that later. They announced this proposed pipeline project called Enbridge, coming out of North Dakota. You see my reservation there called White Earth? They want to throw an oil pipeline across my land, and you know how much we didn't like that, right? So we started organizing, talked to a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of Indian people. Then I realized we got to talk to the non-Indian people. They're like mostly like Norwegians and stuff. I was like, let's go get the Norwegians mad. You know, it's like the Norwegians are really mad now. And so we built this multiracial alliance to defeat a pipeline. 2016, 3-year battle, we defeat Enbridge Sandpiper. Multiracial alliance, legal, on the ground, policy work. That company's gone. Problem is that company bought another pipeline. This is the pipeline they bought. It's called the Dakota Access Pipeline. Standing Rock. They moved out there, $28 million worth of moving out there. This is what you saw at Standing Rock. How many of you saw any of this footage from Standing Rock? Here's some shots for those of you who didn't. So Standing Rock is a reservation in the middle of North Dakota, flooded out about half of it by that dam project where you saw that guy crying, right? And what they got is still some beautiful territory, and they want to put that pipeline right in front, right, like 100 feet from where the water intake is for that tribe. Now originally it was supposed to go north of Bismarck, this pipeline project, but Bismarck is 95% white. So what they do, this is what environmental injustice looks like. And they say, we're just going to put it on Standing Rock. And so we all fought them. So this is the problem that we face today in civil society. This is when they put the dogs on us. Now you have some familiarity with this in the civil rights movement. They still do it in the North us, right? This is what they did on September 4th, 2016. They put dogs on people, water protectors. I'm a water protector. And they militarized it. $38 million worth of militarizing it. This is what the equipment looks like that they bring to a reservation in North Dakota. And I just want to point this out. The piece of equipment on the right is called an MRAP, a mine-resistant armored personnel carrier. mine-resistant armored personnel carrier. I'm going to show you that there's like no mines in North Dakota. You understand what I'm saying? And that drives through a building. There's nothing in Stutzman County that would require a piece of equipment like that. The second piece of equipment is called an LRAD, long-range acoustic device. That's intended to blow your eardrums out. And this is what they do to protect oil companies. So my point is that when you get to the point in your society where you will hurt people to protect oil companies who want to contaminate people's water, you've got a problem in civil society. You have a problem also because the rights of corporations in this country now supersede the rights of humans. And in fact, corporations are considered natural persons under the law. And this is what it looks like when they get their rights enforced by the military. Now, I just want to say, just want to point out a problem with this is that this is not just in northern Minnesota. But I'm someone that believes that they should not, this is what happens when you surplus military equipment to civilian police forces. I don't think you should surplus military equipment to civilian police forces. I don't think I should have a war declared on me, by my government. This is them deploying it. This is our camp. You try to figure out how to feed 3,000 people in the middle of winter behind some barricades in a blizzard. Pretty plucky bunch, huh? We are plucky bunch, water protectors. And then, so in the end, Trump came in and got that project through. This is round 2 Enbridge. This is what I'm fighting now. And the reason you're going to take an interest in this is a 915,000 barrel a day tar sands pipeline. That's a lot of carbon in the environment that you don't want, right? And we're the people that are between Enbridge and that line. So this line is not built in Minnesota because they are not able to go ahead yet. We have fought them in the regulatory process. We fought them, and the regulatory process would have been great. Every agency, if any of you have done this kind of work, every agency recommended against issuing permits for this pipeline. Until an agency known as the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission